Hello and welcome, I'm Stas Butler, and here's what happened this week. Norway, China, Kuwait, some of the world's richest countries spend their money through sovereign wealth funds. They give states a way to earn money and buy influence in global firms. Now, Taiwan's considering setting up a fund of its own.
Taiwan's central bank governor faces a grilling in the legislature. The country holds over $500 billion in foreign currency, and lawmakers want to know why that money's not been invested.
从这5000多亿里面，我要跟你拿10%来去成立主权基金，那你这个将来等于是这些的担保是不是就减少了？
我们是持开放的立场，但是呢，我们对于稳定我们国内的金融市场呢，中央银行呢，一定有我们的职责。
Central Bank Governor Yang Jinglong says he's not against investing Taiwan's money overseas through a sovereign wealth fund. But what does that mean? A sovereign wealth fund is essentially a special pot of extra money owned by the state. Instead of saving that money or putting it back into the country's economy, it decides to invest it around the world, then spend the returns back home. Taiwan is often compared with South Korea, Singapore, and Hong Kong. Together, they're known as the Asian Tigers. But of those countries, Taiwan is the only one without its own sovereign wealth fund. The world's biggest sovereign wealth fund is in Norway. The state there owns one worth nearly $1.4 trillion. The next two biggest are controlled by China, followed by Abu Dhabi with about $850 billion, and Kuwait with $750 billion.
The way sovereign wealth funds are being used is not only to increase the return, but also to increase soft power, because you can be the strategic investor of a major company.
Taiwan is blocked from the UN and most international agencies by China, which claims Taiwan as part of its territory. But a sovereign wealth fund could help Taiwan strengthen its clout.
It's really about whether it wants to expand its geopolitical influence through the basically the government-owned resources.
But a fear of angering Beijing might stop companies from accepting Taiwanese money.
Some people think Taiwan cannot do this because companies will not want to have a strategic investor from Taiwan for what it means for the mainland. But frankly, I think one could argue Taiwan could at least try.
The idea of a Taiwan sovereign wealth fund has been debated for years, and like any major investment, it would certainly come with risks. But for its supporters, a dedicated investment fund for Taiwan could earn the country some extra cash and build vital influence overseas. Klein Wang and Stas Butler for TaiwanPlus.
And for Taiwan's biggest firm, business is booming. TSMC has regained the top spot as Asia's most valuable company. According to a report from Bloomberg, the world's largest contract chip maker squeezed out Chinese conglomerate Tencent for the title. TSMC's stock price has grown by over 6% in May, bringing its market cap to over $450 billion. The company has enjoyed steady growth thanks to developments in AI and a push from many countries to get TSMC's help ramping up their chip production. Meanwhile, Tencent's advertising revenue has underperformed. The cabinet has announced a 7-year, $1.3 billion plan to make Taiwan's roads safer. The money will go to improving roads and signals, as well as traffic safety courses in schools. Officials hope to cut fatal accidents by 5% this year after Taiwan's poor road safety made international headlines. In December, CNN described Taiwan as a living hell for pedestrians. And this week, Japanese media also highlighted Taiwan's deadly roads. They noted that per person, traffic deaths each year in Taiwan were more than 6 times higher than in Japan. A migrant caregiver in central Taiwan has been found badly beaten and forced to work 21.5 hours every day. But as Bing Wang reports, this is not an isolated incident.
人已经打成这样了，你看，我要带去验伤啊，这个，你们太过分了，太可恶了。
This video shows a broker reprimanding a family in Taichung for mistreating a migrant worker. They're accused of beating a caregiver hired to tend to their debilitated son. She says she was forced to work more than 20 hours a day. Authorities are investigating the family, who also allegedly confiscated the migrant worker's passport and phone, restricting her freedom.
侯姓被告等3人涉犯人口贩运防治法之意图盈利、以强暴、胁迫、恐吓、拘禁、监控等方法，使人从事劳动与报酬显不相当之工作罪、刑法之伤害罪、剥夺他人行动自由罪、恐吓为安罪等罪嫌明确，提起公诉。
The Taiwan Association for Human Rights said this is not an isolated case, but incidents like these have a very low conviction rate.
家庭看护工、家事劳工纳入劳基法，完整的保障，还是有一个家事服务法、一个专法来保障，基本上都是目前可以去走的方向。
Taiwan is an aging society, and many families are hiring more migrant workers to take care of their elders. There are some 700,000 migrant workers in the country, and they are essential to the economy. They not only work as caregivers, but also in factories and dangerous fishery jobs. The Labor Ministry hopes to attract at least 80,000 more migrants. But rights activists say the government should also focus on safeguarding the workers' well-being while in Taiwan. Ricky and Bing Wong for TaiwanPlus.
In other human rights news, the number of people in Taiwan who support same-sex marriage has grown by over 25% in less than 5 years. Now, that's a major uptick since the country legalized the right for same-sex couples to marry 4 years ago. According to a yearly government survey, over 60% of Taiwan's public now support same-sex marriage. That's compared to less than 40% surveyed in 2018. May the 24th marks 4 years since Taiwan became the first country in Asia to recognize same-sex unions. Taiwan's last known survivor of sexual slavery committed by the Japanese military during World War II has died, aged 92. The Ama Museum, which works to tell the women's stories, confirmed the news on Monday. During the war, more than 2,000 Taiwanese women were forcefully recruited by the Imperial Japanese military to serve as so-called comfort women for soldiers. As many as 200,000 comfort women were taken from occupied territories, including China and Korea. It's still a source of tension between Japan and its neighbors. And in another area of tension, a new survey of Chinese people suggests more than half would support a full-scale war against Taiwan. Researchers ran an online poll in 2020 and 2021 of more than 2,000 Chinese. They were asked to rate different policies on Taiwan. 55% said full-scale war was acceptable to them. But the same percentage said they could accept keeping the status quo and wait for Taiwan to unify peacefully. The researchers behind the poll say it shows Chinese people support a wide range of policies on Taiwan, not just military conflict. Meanwhile, in Taiwan, the armed forces have held joint drills in the south and east of the country. The exercises aim to get the Army, Navy and Air Force working better together. In southern Taiwan, helicopters and ground troops trained to support one another, while in the east, the Navy Marine Corps surveyed areas of the coast known as red beaches. Defense officials are working to bulk up defenses around these beaches, which are thought to be possible landing sites for a Chinese invasion. The drills will last for 5 days. They're taking place 2 months before Taiwan's due to hold its largest war games, the Hangguang exercises, in July. The Philippines' northernmost province, Batanes, relies on imports for most of the food it consumes. Rick Glauert reports on how the tensions between China and Taiwan are forcing the islands to rethink food security.
In his spare time, office worker Jerome Kabugao grows what he can to boost his family's supply of food. On the remote island of Batanes in the northern Philippines, indigenous Ivitans like Kabugao contend not just with the rugged terrain, but strong winds and extreme weather. Conditions that also make it hard to import all the food they need.
The risks are always there, and that is why it's very important for us to be prepared for any eventualities.
Now the 17,000 Ivitans on Batanes are facing new risks. The possibility of conflict in the nearby Taiwan Strait, which is underlining their island's vulnerability. Batanes relies on imports for the vast majority of the island's food. Most of it arrives here at the province's largest port. Anything that stops those crucial supply boats from arriving presents a real threat to the lives of the Ivatan. Batanes is less than 200 kilometers from Taiwan, which China claims as part of its sovereign territory. The Chinese military has increasingly sent boats and planes into the area around the island nation, fueling a build-up in the region not just of Chinese forces, but the US military, an ally of Taiwan. And the Philippines risks getting caught in between the US, its historical military partner, and China, its largest trading partner. This has prompted Batanes to prepare for the worst, planning to stockpile necessities and boost the amount of food it can produce on the islands, including some projects funded by China. At the same time, local officials have their eyes on US funding. The United States recently promised more than $80 million to develop Philippine military bases it wants access to. Batanes hopes a deal like this could upgrade the island's infrastructure, allowing more boats and planes to land. But some see it as a potential double-edged sword.
We welcome that. But on the other hand, infrastructure that is built by, for military purposes, that's also dangerous for the part of Batanes.
Many Ivitans believe traditional skills learned over centuries of fishing and farming will help them face anything that lies ahead.
We have to be humble. We have to be hard workers. So, like the creepers of the yam and the sweet potato, we have to creep on the ground and feel that we are attached to our Mother Earth.
Ivitans farm in time with the phases of the moon, a tradition that has helped them survive here for generations. Now, as they grapple with the potential impact of a conflict beyond their control, it is their connection to the land that is providing a sense of security. Patrick Chen and Rick Lowett in Batanes, the Philippines, for TaiwanPlus.
And residents near an airbase in eastern Taiwan are set to get compensation. That's due to the growing noise from fighter jets, which are taking off more often because of tensions with China. John Van Trieste has the details.
Fighter jets like these have long been a common sight in the skies above Hualien in eastern Taiwan, home to a big airbase. But Chinese incursions into Taiwan's air defense zone mean they've never been quite so active before. Some locals have noticed.
The
military has decided to offer compensation for all the noise. It's gathered data on which areas are noisiest. Depending on how loud the jets get overhead, it's offering up to $20 US. Not everyone thinks this is necessary. But local officials plan to keep measuring the noise and adjusting who gets what money.
在我们的等噪音线图的划分是每2年会检讨一次。我们因为去年才划分，所以我们必须要明年的时候才收集到的资料，明年再来做修正。
While the military plans to keep up its activity in this noisy patch of sky for the nation's security. John Su and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching Here's What Happened. Remember to download the TaiwanPlus app for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, today we leave you with images of what people in Taiwan's Mulls Islands call blue tears. It's caused by glowing microorganisms. I'm Stas Butler. Take care and see you next time.